Okay, Alejandro. So, um, in yours, I think your buildings look really good, really nice design. I love the kind of dimension you've created in the windows. I'm just gonna maybe just turn this into black and white here, just so that we can see it a little bit better. There we go. Maybe we'll lighten it a little bit too. Um, so, what's happened? So sometimes in perspective, you can run into problems working in perspective because we're making things up from scratch, and so sometimes it's hard to just understand the relationship of how things are working, in terms of like where the horizon line is, where your objects are, how things are working. So, I don't think I did quite a great. I'm going to turn it back here so I can see everything a little bit more clearly. um, when I adjusted it, I used kind of a shortcut, and I think it's probably easier to control your what you're doing here in levels, which I think is what our the learning activities talk about. Yeah, so that looks a lot better. I kind of not I When I adjusted it, I knocked out some of the lines. Okay, so back to what's happening here. So you may have noticed something was a little weird when you were drawing. And what's happening is this is your horizon line right here that you've drawn. So if you imagine this looking out like in the world, this is the ground and this is the sky up here. Okay, so everything that happens in your drawing, in terms of the space, you need to really understand that. So like this could happen with the big hill up here, but you need to have this hill. But further, like your buildings now really are floating in space. Can you see that? So this is the horizon line and these are your buildings. So they're actually hovering. So you need to bring the rectangular prisms below the horizon line. Okay. So you would need to bring, like, for example, this guy down into the space down here so that you can, um, I'm not 100% sure if this is your vanishing point. I'm just sort of making it up here, but so you get the idea. Okay. So so now we would have more of a natural space. Okay. So what you could do is, you could take this drawing as is, and you could just kind of erase this curb, and then just pull your building down, like just kind of pull these. I'm fudging the vanishing point here, so you would draw it up to your vanishing point. But you could pull these doors down, just make it a really kind of weird tall door. That's fine. But that would be the first thing. Okay, so you'd want to do that. And then for changing planes and angles, we'll actually maybe on a different drawing work on that a little bit more to demonstrate how you would do that. But the first thing I would do is just create your buildings below the horizon line. Um, if you want to just start a new drawing and give yourself a little more space down here, you can do that. Or if you just don't want to do a lot of erasing, that's fine. Um, yeah, that's the first thing. And then for changing planes and angles, I think you've got a good start here. You just want to make sure you keep all of the construction lines how you created it, how you developed it. And if you were struggling with that a little bit, again, we'll take a look at that in more detail in a few minutes. Okay. Ashley, yeah, you brought up a really good point, is that when you put your first building, you weren't really certain what the view would be like. That is something that I think is so important to understand in perspective drawing, is that when we start, sometimes we don't know how the space is going to be developed. I think when you become really, advanced as a perspective drawer, you can really figure that out, like doing little sketches and thumbnails beforehand. But sometimes when you just start drawing, you find, oh, hey, that building got a lot maybe bigger than I thought, and I don't have room for this, and this is a little bit cramped, and that's really a very normal part of perspective drawing. So if you get a little like, if you feel like, hey, my drawing didn't kind of turn out the way I imagined it, it's really a part of learning about perspective. It's just that the way it develops, you find that some of it is a little bit, maybe a little accidental in terms of how things look in terms of your placements and your composition. Um, Okay, foliage. Yeah, you know, foliage is, you don't necessarily need foliage for this assignment. If you do, you know, you can keep it very simple. Um, let's see, is this your drawing right here? Yes, just make sure here that Photoshop is, yeah. Okay, good. So you've got your buildings, they look great, nicely done. And zoom in here a little bit. And you've got some changing angles here. So for your changing angles, um, so you want to make sure with your, so let's see, so you've got this road here, which is great, and then you've got your line right here, which is great. Now where, so if you wanted to go in this direction, you're actually going to place that vanishing point on the horizon somewhere. It has to be on the horizon line. Now yours actually looks, I mean, you give the idea of a road in space. So it's actually, you know, still working, but you do, to be accurate, you would go and you would have it right on that horizon line. And then you do the hinge here, and then you would place it over here. And so it would actually kind of go back to nothing here. So that's how that's how you want to do it most accurately. Okay. Um, for changing angles. Uh, okay. So in terms of how do you add shrubbery or like trees, like shrubs, you can sort of add, you know, however you like. But with a tree, you probably already understand this, but you know, you do have a little bit of space in here. You probably could do something with, if you wanted to, you could add some trees, and trees just get added by using this bottom vanishing point. That would be like the tree trunk is this, you know, wherever you wanted it to, you know, start. I'm not going to draw it too much here, but you know, you would use that line to kind of help you guide where the tree trunk is, and then maybe you'd have the foliage happening up here, you know. Um, if you don't want to draw trees, you could, you know, do something else in here, even like little benches if you want to, you know, have some sort of small things in here, little, um, you know, parking concrete parking pavers, or you know, something fun, something, whatever you like to kind of fill that space. Okay, anything else too you want to add into your composition that would, you know, you feel like you could um, give it a little more character? It's always fun to do that at this point. Okay, I hope that helps. Hey, Jordan. So yeah, this looks, your buildings look really good. They're very you know, dimensional, a lot of interesting detail in here. That looks really great. You did a wonderful job in that. So I would just say at this point, you just want to add a little bit of changing planes and angles, and also to just block in your composition a little bit, just like you did in previous in 1 and 2 point perspectives. So why don't we do that first? Um, just change the weight of my line here. So you know, you always want to be inside when you block out your composition. You want to be inside of your vanishing points. So somewhere in there, you know, you can of course do. I'm just sort of blocking it in to show you you want to block it in, but where it exactly goes, as long as it's within those vanishing points, that's the most important thing. So something like that. So this is, okay, so this is your horizon line right here. I'm going to just put that in so I can see it a little bit clearly for when we do the changing planes and angles. And so there's a tutorial for how to do this in the assignment instructions. And I'm also just going to maybe, if you don't mind, I'm going to use your drawing to just demonstrate a little bit further how it works. Um, so what I would do here, so now we've blocked this in. So we're just going to sort of draw inside here, but kind of let it go out just so that we, you know, we're probably going to have to go outside of the composition a little bit, but that's okay. Those would be just guidelines, and you can keep like the you know, the darkened edges of your lines within your composition, if that makes sense, you know, because we may have to go outside of the, just to be able to do it. So we could, let's just use this guy right here that you already have. Let's use this as a line to begin with. And then what we could do here, let's do changing, maybe we'll use this side to do changing you can combine changing angles and planes, and that's what the assignment tutorial does. But I think what I'll do here is just to separate them so that it makes more sense for folks, who might be, wondering about it. I'll just use this line here. So here's our first stage of our road, and let's just start with changing angles. And so now we just do that hinge. I think I did it earlier with somebody else's drawing. And then this goes up to a vanishing point that you pick somewhere on your horizon line. So we could I'm just going to put something here. And then we draw, and this would all be done with guidelines, and then you just darken in what you need to. The tutorial talks about that a little bit more. And so there's our first one, and you can see it's going over the building, so it's all going to be hidden, but I'm just kind of using this as a guide. And then, okay, let's change the angle really close here so that we don't, we keep it inside of what we have here with the building. So that's our hinge, and then we can just maybe go outside. Let's go outside of this. Let's go right maybe here. So our angles are going to be quite subtle because we don't have a lot of space to work in. But so there, there's a very kind of quick changing angle, and then of course you can keep building it here. We don't really have room here, any space in this side to do that, but that would be, if you had more space, you could kind of have it going here, in all kinds of directions. You can change the angles many times as you have room. And then for this side, we could, let's use these lines here. I don't have, yeah, so let's just use this guy here again. And then with changing planes, then let's just find a spot here. We'll change it right here. We'll just put the hinge here. All you do with that is you really can place it in a lot of different places. If you want it to go downhill, then you have it below the horizon line. So maybe it's spot here, and then we can take it here. So that's now going downhill. And then let's just angle it up here, do the hinge again. And if we want it to go uphill, then what we would do is we would, put it above the horizon line somewhere. So a little spot up here, and then we would just draw it. And again, we could do as many, we could just have it go, and then we can maybe have it go, let's just have it go straight to the horizon line. You always want it to end going straight to the horizon line, unless you have a hill. So something like that, So that's the difference between changing planes and angles. You can combine them together or keep them separate. You don't have to do both of them in your drawing. You can just do one or the other. It's up to you. Okay, Michelle. Okay, yeah, your buildings look good. I think they're working really well. And in terms of your composition, you could maybe use, you could add a few more buildings maybe here. It's also good to just, I think, the tutorial has a composition very similar to this with the buildings here and the road here. So it's always good to kind of change from the tutorial, to just create your own composition for several reasons. One, it's just good to do your own individual one, just to be creative. But I think it also really helps you understand the concepts more, to veer off from the composition. So you take that knowledge and apply it. So let's see, changing planes and angles. Yeah, so you started off, so you're starting off here. Let me just see here. Let's get a little bit of a bigger line. Okay, hopefully that's maybe a bit bigger. So yeah, so you're starting off here. So when you get to the point where you want to make the change, you want to make sure you're putting that hinge in to identify it. I think that's the first thing. Maybe you did, I think maybe you did that and maybe erased it. Um, and then so you have to decide what you're doing, whether you're doing a changing plane or a changing angle. If you're doing a changing angle, then all you would do is just pick a point on the horizon line, somewhere, and travel towards it. Okay. And you could leave it here if you want to have more angles. You would just keep doing the hinge, pick another spot, like you would do another hinge here, pick another spot on the horizon line to go to somewhere here, and then just keep going. That's it. That's all it is. And then if you want to do changing um, planes, I demonstrated that on Jordan's drawings. You would just have the vanishing point above or below. That's it. But when you get close to the horizon line, you want to make sure that you go back to the changing. If you're combining them, you want to go back to the changing angle so that it goes off. You want it to kind of invisibly go into the distance. Like to meet, just like this one is. Okay, that's it. That's what I'd work on. It looks like your drawing got a little bit smudged here, so you might want to clean it up just a little bit. And maybe do a little bit of erasing, add a few more details in here, but I think you're going in a good direction. Okay. Yeah, in terms of the time stamp, as you probably know, I don't have I don't take points off for your being late. Um, However, it is really good to have your drawing in by the time I do the critique, the next day. So there's a leeway of several hours, so if you need some few extra hours, don't feel like that 10 o'clock deadline is really firm. For me, it isn't. Other instructors are different. We all have our different policies within, the larger AI framework, and mine is fairly flexible. Okay, I'm gonna just maybe adjust this so I can see it a little bit more. Ooh, that didn't work. Let's try an auto tone. You might just need a little bit more when photographing, get a little bit more color, like lighting on it. Sometimes that can help. Let's see if I can adjust it a little bit. Yeah, I don't think I can. I'm going to leave it the way it is. Um, okay, yeah, this is a good start. So it looks like you've got your building sketched in. Um, some things you could just add more details to them. But I would actually, like I mentioned before, once you've watched the tutorial, it's good to start your own kind of more unique composition. Like maybe your buildings would be on the right or somewhere else. Just kind of play with it a little bit or change, where they are placed or, having more of them in different places just to kind of play with that a little bit. But yeah, adding more details to your building, making sure you're blocking it in your drawing. You don't have to. So I would say, if I were doing this assignment, I would probably block it in at the very end. You know, once I had everything, sort of deciding, hey, where do I want things to go? So maybe something like that. Um, okay, that's the main thing. I think you've got you changing planes. Look like you've got that, or angles. Looks like that's working. So I would just add more detail. Play with your craft, like details, the line work, and photographing. I think just with a little bit more work, it'll be a really good drawing. Yeah, I think especially in terms of this assignment, bird's eye view is a little bit easier. I think that worm's eye view just it can be a little bit more perceptually challenging, so I think probably working with a bird's eye view is really a good idea. Okay, so for your drawing, so yeah, I think it all's looking really good. Very accurate in terms of the perspective. You've got a really good handle on it. I would say a few things. One is, I might move this vanishing point a little lower. Even if it's not on your page, like if you have a little, what I used to do when I was doing a lot of drawings on paper like this, is I would take a piece of masking tape or any tape really, and put it below the drawing. This is actually what we were taught to do, so that your vanishing point gets a little bit outside of the picture plane, so that when you get, sorry about that, I had my setting really high. So, you know, when you get these really extreme shapes on these sides right here, that's because your vanishing point is too close. So having it even just a few inches below your paper will make it look a lot more natural. Um, yeah, so that's the main thing here. And then, like I mentioned to some other folks, you know, it'd be nice to just maybe kind of add some more kind of unique designs into your drawing from the tutorial, like maybe even adding some building, another building here, some buildings here on this side. You know, you could create a street um, view. That would be really awesome. Uh, you know, you don't feel like, yeah, so in terms of this, maybe this vanishing point, just keep that in mind. I don't think you necessarily have to start a whole new drawing, but maybe like replace some of these trees with some other buildings, you know, to practice the building form a little bit more. Yeah, otherwise, I love what you did with the hills in the background. I think those look really, really good. And also make sure that you're blocking in your drawing. Oh, yeah, you've got it blocked in here. Yeah, so that's good. Maybe darken those lines just a tiny bit more. Okay, Amy. All right, in yours, yeah, it looks really accurate. Nice buildings, and you've got your changing um, planes and angles. That looks really good. Yeah, I think overall this looks really good. The only thing I would say is maybe, you know, maybe add a few more buildings back here if you like, just to kind of again experiment with the composition from the sort of the kind of the template of the tutorial. And maybe add a, you know, you could add a few more trees. Uh, and maybe adjust the color here in Photoshop. But otherwise, I think it's looking really, really good. Nice, very nice craft in terms of the line work. That's always so important when you're drawing perspective, is to really focus on that, because it just makes everything much more precise. So good. Okay, we're done, everybody. Nice job. And look forward to seeing your revisions on Sunday.